Hello, everyone. Let's arrive in the space. Thank you so much, Marie, for that wonderful music. It's so good to see your faces. I'm so happy to welcome all of you to the 2023 Community Change Champions Awards. Woo! My name is Lorela Praeli, and I'm co-president of Community Change. It's great to see you here, whether you're joining in the room or virtually. I want to thank all of our sponsors, including SCIU, our champion sponsor, as well as Chris Hughes, and Sean Eldridge, Katrina Van Hoovel, Naomi Aberly, all our diamond sponsors. Thanks also to our host committee, our board members. Raise your hand wherever you are. Be proud. And all of tonight's honorees. Community Change has been hosting the Champions Awards for almost 20 years. And every year offers us the opportunity for reflection, what's changed, what's urgent, what's difficult, and what deserves, what requires our celebration. Tonight, I want to claim for our movement a major victory in the battle of ideas. We're finally emerging from the 50-year project of neoliberalism, the ideology that says markets are God, government is bad, and every one of us is on our own. Neoliberalism ushered in the deliberate transfer of wealth and power to the 1%. But over the past 2 years, thanks to decades of community and labor organizing, thanks to the movement, we're seeing the beginnings of change. That's like a kudos to all of you in the room and joining virtually, like celebrate that. Congress passed a suite of laws that altogether provided $5 trillion in investments with the potential of creating millions of good jobs, strengthening public infrastructure, and moving us toward a clean energy future. The expanded child tax credit temporarily cut child poverty in half in only 6 months during 2021. In only 6 months during 2021. So don't let them tell you that poverty is inevitable. It is absolutely a policy choice. New labor organizing is flourishing, and old labor is flexing its muscles from Staten Island to Georgia, from Detroit to Hollywood. The shift is truly incredible, and it points us toward a new post-neoliberal future. And we must seize that potential and shape it for our communities, because even with these positive signs, we cannot forget that more than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and nearly 40% don't have enough money in the bank account to cover a $400 emergency. So winning the battle of ideas and passing new laws, these are crucial steps forward, but nowhere near the end of the road. We must do the work of implementation, of consolidation, of continuous defense. So tonight's honorees are leaders who have never stopped that day-to-day fight for our communities. They know that there are no shortcuts to building and wielding power. In chemistry, a catalyst accelerates a reaction and speeds up the process of change. Social movements seek to create and capitalize on moments that shift the trajectory of what's possible. The people and the organizations that we're honoring tonight are those catalysts of change. VIVIAN CHANG grew up in organizing, and her work as executive director of the Susan Sandler Fund has changed the trajectory of Black, Latino, and API-led organizations and the communities they fight with and for. Gladys Jones, our emerging change champion, didn't know that a global pandemic would put childcare in the political spotlight, but she stepped up, building on 2 decades of investments in relationships, leadership, and trust with the childcare providers in her organization, ECE on the Move. Day in and day out, thank you, yes. Yes, Gladys. Day in and day out, our work readies the ground so that when conditions are right, we can win what people thought was impossible, what they thought was unwinnable. That's exactly what Chicago's grassroots political powerhouse did. Institutions like Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families, and labor allies like the Chicago Teachers Union, SEIU Healthcare, Local 73. That's what they did when they disrupted the party machine to elect Mayor Brandon Johnson. They created the conditions to win, and now they're working alongside the Johnson administration to catalyze new progressive governance. In New Mexico, where are all the New Mexico people in the house? Make some noise for New Mexico. We've worked with Ole for nearly a decade. That's how long change takes, and longer sometimes. Through setbacks and challenges, and with partners like Liz-Simons, Ole put the movement on a new trajectory by winning the first constitutional guarantee to childcare in this country's history. Let me say that again, just in case it wasn't clear for people in the room. The first ever constitutional guarantee to childcare in our country's history. Our honorees tonight are winning not only the battle of ideas, they are also winning change in the material conditions in people's lives. They are the catalyst for our country's change, and we are grateful for their inspiration. I hope you enjoy tonight. I am gonna welcome our first honoree, Gladys Jones, founder and Chief Executive Officer of ECE on the Move.
Gladys Jones is a catalyst of change. She has been organizing her fellow childcare providers in New York City for decades, forming ECE on the Move in 2018. In March 2020, as lockdown orders brought New York City to a standstill, Gladys watched from her Staten Island home and daycare as case count surged. The hundreds of home-based providers that made up her network struggled with the day-to-day risk of keeping their doors open to care for the children of essential workers and first responders, while also staying healthy. The pandemic exposed deep inequities in the piecemeal system. Gladys used the attention on her sector to highlight the significance of childcare workers and the importance of equitably representing, paying, and providing for them.
Well, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I'm involving myself where we were not involved before, and it's important that the workforce is at the table. We must be. And I also learned that we need each other, stakeholders, everyone has a role in this.
To make sure childcare workers had a voice in the conversation, Gladys and ECE on the Move joined Childcare Changemakers, Community Change Action's national network of parents and providers advocating for living wages, an equitable system, and affordable care.
Parents, providers, and all of us have a business together.
With the growing network of ECE on the Move, GLADYS brought providers into the conversation and opened the door to increase public investment in New York City. She's the spark that draws others into the movement for economic and racial justice. Community Change and the Petra Foundation created this award. Named in memory of Pablo Eisenberg, Community Change's former executive director, to honor movement leaders like GLADYS. For coaching and developing movement leaders in her community and inspiring providers across the country to fight for quality childcare and economic security, and for putting the lived experience of childcare workers at the heart of the policy debate, Community Change is proud to recognize GLADYS Jones with the Pablo Eisenberg Emerging Change Champion Award.
Very hard for me, but I'm making it. First of all, I got to thank Pablo Eisenberg. I want to thank Community for Change. I want to thank Empire State Child Care Campaign for Children. I want to thank my two good friends, Doris and Shanita. Oh, sorry. I want to thank Doris and Shanita, my two good friends, my colleagues I love very much. I want to thank ECE on the Move. And I'm going to go ahead and give this microphone to Shanita right now because I got a stroke. I don't talk as well as I used to. Before I forget, I gotta thank my beautiful husband, Larry Jones. Okay. Come on. Go ahead. Talk. Go ahead. Go ahead. Hey, these girls are getting too...
Hi, GLADYS, thank you for being an inspiration to me and so many providers around you. You have been a beacon during the most critical times for childcare providers. You have always led by example and gone above and beyond. I'm very proud of you, and I'm being honored that you're being honored, and it is well earned and deserved. I love you.
GLADYS has fought hard to keep family child care provider voice and issues in the ears of those who mandate our work and those who need our sector for their initiatives and those who are leading policy work to better our lives. I will say that if she hadn't come along to stimulate family child care providers to be interested in the advocacy work of our own work and our own futures, many of us would have just continued to be reactionary of poorly informed policy put forth for us and not by us, as she would have it. She started a culture of bringing providers to tables, No permission needed. So per her trailblazing example, don't ever even pretend to be surprised when you see family child care providers and now parents at every single table where policymakers or anyone else who's gathered to discuss our fate. GLADYS is not having it.
No, she's not.
Thank you.
Okay, one more thing. I want to say childcare. We are here, we are not criminals. We're not drug addicts. We're not drug dealers, etc. We are here only to love children. Okay, thank you.
VIVIAN CHANG is a catalyst of change.
As someone who grew up and was trained in the craft of organizing and power building, and that is explicitly what we fund, I believe so deeply in that. The structural change that we are looking for will not happen unless there is a powerful base of people who are closest to the pain leading that effort.
VIVIAN worked to build that people power as an organizer and as the executive director of the Asian Pacific Environmental Network before moving into philanthropy as the vice president of the East Bay Community Foundation, where her grant-making addressed structural barriers to racial equity. In 2018, she took on a new challenge as the founding executive director of the Susan Sandler Fund, which launched publicly amid the racial justice reckoning of 2020.
How are we going to make change at the scale that it needs to be made?
That's the question that animated Susan Sandler's life and vision for her philanthropy. It's the question that shapes her legacy and the distinctive mark she made on the world, a world she left far too soon. Before her death last December, Susan, her husband Steve Phillips, and VIVIAN co-created one of the most consequential and important racial justice philanthropies in our country. Building on her lifetime of philanthropy, Susan entrusted and empowered VIVIAN to build what would become her legacy.
And the reality is the work of building power is about developing the muscle of democracy and collective democracy.
Through the Susan Sandler Fund, VIVIAN invests $10 million each year in racial justice organizations that are winning tangible change with and for people of color. Groups like Texas Organizing Project and Florida Rising Together. Her grant-making strategy builds people power, breaking away from philanthropy's usual approach of persuasion.
If we believe the fight for liberation is a long-term arc, then we need to be committed to funding durable power, which requires durable institutions and durable funding. And so my call to action is for all of us, what would it take to create durability within your funding institution?
VIVIAN also carries on Susan's legacy within Community Change Action, serving on the board that Susan chaired for years. For combating the structures of racism and white supremacy that permeate philanthropy, for directly investing in leaders of color and their institutions, and for co-creating and continuing the movement legacy of Susan Sandler as the founding executive director of the Susan Sandler Fund. Community Change is proud to honor VIVIAN CHANG as our 2023 Champion in Philanthropic Leadership and Racial and Gender Justice.
want to start by inviting us to take several breaths in honor of Susan. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Susan was so clear about her role in this world and what it meant to be a white woman in the fight for a more just and equal world. She was so rigorous in her work, and she did it without ego. This fund, it was never about her own ego. It was always about making the world a better place. She and I started this fund with a couple premises. One, that the pain and injustice we experience in our country today are products of decisions that are made. Two, that the most effective way to change the minds of those making decisions is to change the context by which those decisions are made. And third, the way to change the context is to change the relationships of power that have been established by centuries of systemic racism. And I knew this to be true from my own work, whether it was organizing to hold big label garment manufacturers liable or trying to pressure big developers for community benefits agreements, or whether it was running field campaigns. When you build bases of everyday people who are most directly impacted so that they can stand and act together, you change the context of what is possible. And so that's how Susan and I began, funding the leaders and organizations who are doing exactly this. And in the headlines, you'll read about the policy victories these organizations and leaders help make happen, whether it's raising the minimum wage in Florida or whether it's the first voting rights at the state level in Virginia, or you might read about the hundreds of thousands of voters that they register and mobilize to the polls every election. But what's actually not seen and understood about these organizations is that their efficacy doesn't come from facilitating individual disparate actions. Their power comes from bringing people together who have been split because of the near constant crisis that's experienced on a daily basis. And so since we're talking about chemistry, catalysts, I'm going to introduce another one, which is alchemy, right? And when two elements come together and fuse and become something bigger and more powerful. And I would say it's that alchemy, that is where the potency happens. And the thing is, they're not bringing people together in a way that just says, oh, we're all the same, and can we just all get along? They are bringing people together in a way that recognizes that different communities have had their own distinct experience in this larger system. And that sometimes even different people within different communities have different experiences within the system. And so how is it that we can come together to understand each other's paths, understand what it is that connects us, and then together to figure out a different world that we can fight for? And that is the power that can come from alchemy. And turns out it's actually also the what you need and the power that you need whenever a crisis happens, and whether that crisis is a hurricane or whether that crisis is political in nature, like what we see happening in Tennessee. At the end of the day, it is the relationships that actually pull a community through that crisis. So I'm going to just end by saying that Susan and I talked a lot about legacy when we created this fund. And so I'm just going to share that she very much saw her legacy as embedded in the leaders and organizations who carry on the fight beyond her lifetime and her generation. Because let's be honest, none of these issues we're grappling with, they're not going to be solved in our lifetime. And so I understand that my number one accountability is to make sure that the leaders and organizations we believe in so deeply, that they are stronger than when we first met them, that they have everything they need to navigate these very volatile times. now and for the duration. And it's so easy to forget that, right? In philanthropy, we'll have a conversation about this, we'll have a conversation about this, and this. And all that is fine and good, except that our number one job is to make sure that the leaders and organizations have what they need. Full stop. Thank you, Community Change. I am so, so honored to be on this path with you. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. My name's Afia Atamensa, and I serve as the Chief of Programs here at Community Change. Thank you, I'll take it. So listen, this is my first in-person Change Champions. I know. Next month will mark 2 years for me here at Community Change. Thank you. And you know, I was reflecting earlier a little bit about what brought me here. I previously served as the executive director of a partner organization, and I believe deeply and have been transformed in my life due to the amazing work we do building power in states. But I wanted to come to an institution that knew of the importance of aggregating the sum of all the amazing work that we were doing in our states. If you think about it, an organization that knew that they needed to bring it together, the sum of our greatness, right? Where we were able to have our collective stories told, right? Our shared hopes and our dreams, and that some of our greatness would be brought together to wield power in a way that would transform the lives of this nation. And so that's exactly what we need right now, the sum of our collective work, of our power as we take on these battles ahead. So tonight, we're going to take a pause to celebrate some of the victories along the way, celebrating some of the examples of what is possible when we are able to wield the power of the sum of our greatness, and the people who have made these wins possible. But before we bring some of these dynamic champions for a well-deserved recognition and celebration, I want to take a moment to lift up some of our incredible sponsors of this event. I want to recognize our sponsors like SEIU for your financial support in spaces like this and your partnership in the work and out in the world. The gifts from people here in the room and joining us virtually from across the country make our work possible. Because of your support, we can invest in incredible leaders like Ms. Gladys Jones, who are stepping into their power and purpose to transform the systems that impact the people they love. We get to walk alongside power-building organizations like Olay, who are changing the trajectory of what is possible for our people in New Mexico. We fuel movements that disrupt politics as usual, like our brothers and sisters and non-binary comrades in Chicago's Grassroots political powerhouse. And ultimately, with your support, we can continue to do this essential work. So here's what I need y'all to do, okay? We all look good tonight. Turn to the person next to you. Turn to them, look at them. All right, so this is what I need you. Repeat after me. So you're looking at the person, say, neighbor, it is good, to give. Yes, I need y'all to give tonight. Now, any amount will do. But I need you to fund us like you believe in our collective greatness. And if that isn't all, I want to let you know that when you make a donation tonight, You will also be automatically entered in a raffle for one of 5 signed, personalized copies of the Pulitzer Prize-winning and New York Times bestselling author Matthew Desmond's latest book, Poverty by America, which examines how wealthy and middle-class Americans knowingly and unknowingly perpetuate a broken system that keeps poor people poor. So please donate and you'll have the chance to win a personally signed copy. And our dynamic team has made it simple. You can go on and scan the QR code from your phones. I know y'all have them. Take them out. All right? We're here to make it easy for you to make your contribution. If you're one of the people out there who still has a check like my mama, God bless her, you can go ahead and write one of those right now. Our amazing staff, wave your hand. We'll come on and collect it, okay? So thank you so much for your support tonight. As you are thinking and contemplating about how you're going to give because it is good, we are going to allow you to have some amazing musical accompaniment. It is my joy to welcome Marie Tati back to the stage. Marie is a singer, songwriter, artist, and performer who is deeply rooted in Washington, D.C., and she is dedicated to creating art with deep regard for community service. And she will be performing her original piece, Come Back Home, Black and Brown, which honors indigenous peoples and their relationship to land.
So good.
For just making this connection. And, art is not free, but it does enable us to feel free. And I wrote this song kind of inspired in 2017 by the election of Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States of America. And in response to my friends who are undocumented and their fear at that time of being deported and being pulled apart by government. And so I love this song, has a special place. And then I want to just do a quick shout out to Soulfire Farm in Grafton, New York. There we go. Yep. For connecting a bunch of Black and brown farmers all across the nation, which inspired the friendship this song is written for. I left the country yesterday. I have the privilege to return unscathed. But I have friends who cannot leave and come back home. I thought I'd change my rhythm here. I'd have a break from pain and loss and fear. But my love is over there. She can't come back home. Come back home. Black and brown, stand tall, mighty tree can't fall. Oh, I wish it could be over now so you can come back home. Thanks, y'all. I asked my ancestors to protect me. Their mighty struggle is not won. Gotta rest their souls. I have a hope I cannot lose. Though we are weary and our strength's misused, who breaks or paves the road ahead for us to claim our home and make our own. Black and brown, stand tall like a mighty tree that can't fall. We built a vision of a place called home so we can all come home. Come back home. Come back home. Come back home. Thank you.
What you have proven in New Mexico is that the best antidote to the MAGA GOP hate is deep organizing in our communities. Together, we're stronger than greed, and together we can win.
On November 3rd, 2022, voters in New Mexico overwhelmingly approved a constitutional amendment that makes childcare a right. The journey to this paradigm-changing, first-of-its-kind policy was long. It called for many people in many roles and from many walks of life to step into their purpose and power. But after more than a decade, the movement for childcare justice won with more than 70% of the vote. In 2009, working families came together to form OLE, Organizers in the Land of Enchantment. OLE started organizing, centering the experience of people of color, immigrants, and women. They soon recognized that childcare was the issue that united their base and would drive their power building. In 2009, Liz Simons was entering the work from a different vantage point. She and her husband, Mark Heising, had started their foundation 2 years earlier, and Liz made sure that early childhood care and education was a priority. She knew the impact of early learning from her time as a public school teacher in Oakland, California.
And continued to be haunted by those things I hadn't been able to give my students. Things that I was starting to see were pieces of much larger systemic problems.
In New Mexico, OLE faced a series of setbacks with state legislators as industry opposition poured money into the fight. Still, OLE kept organizing. Community Change walked alongside OLE, supporting OLE's changing needs, building new muscles, and experimenting with creative ways to engage more childcare providers and parents in the fight for change. At the same time, Liz began investing to build the political power to change the conditions of what is possible. Through her leadership, the Heising-Simons Foundation invested in grassroots organizing with a commitment that showed the funder community how to build power. As she and Mark wrote in their giving pledge, her role is to be a conduit of power, and her approach to building power doesn't stop with the Heising-Simons Foundation. Her support through other vehicles helped OLE to build and sustain political power to win. OLE has grown into a strategic powerhouse and political player in New Mexico. Their approach to organizing and to policy inspire groups across the country to fight for the bold, audacious demand. So for building a childcare justice movement, for believing and investing in the power of people, and for showing the entire country what is possible, Community Change is proud to recognize the 2023 Champion and Movement Building Award recipients, OLE, Organizers in the Land of Enchantment, and Liz Simons.
It is my pleasure to introduce Andrea Serrano, Jennifer Matthews, Ivy Del Natuchu of Olay Organizers in the Land of Enchantment, and Liz Simons, Chair of the Heising-Simons Foundation, to accept this award.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Community Change. We're honored to share this award with Liz Simons, and just so honored to be here with all of you this evening. Passage of the New Mexico Constitutional Amendment for Early Education didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't one group in this effort. It was a long road that began in 2010. The children who started in this fight are now in middle and high school, and so we were long overdue for this win. Passage was a community effort. It was homegrown by and for New Mexicans. We rooted our message in New Mexico values and built upon the years of conversations that we had at the doors, in community meetings, inside early ed centers, churches, the state legislature, and any and everywhere we could be. Our team, including the two folks you see with me tonight, Jennifer Matthews and Ivy Del Natuchu, they honed their brilliance in digital skills, in talking with their colleagues and families inside early education centers, and they relentlessly showed up for this fight. Our organizers, our canvassing staff. I have to mention my co-director, Matthew Henderson, who was in this fight from the beginning, and he's on a very well-earned sabbatical right now. That's why he's not with us tonight. But he never gave up, and he never stopped believing. And in that spirit, neither did we. But none of this was possible without support. And it was support including our friends from across the country, like Community Change, and philanthropy, like Heising-Simons. And it meant we were able to get across the finish line with 70% of support from voters. And that wasn't a fluke. That was the culmination of 12 years of showing up, of strengthening relationships, and of building movements. The fact that national groups and philanthropy believed in our vision is proof that we are on the correct side of history. In a recent conversation that I had with Liz, we spoke at length of the care economy and how it's historically been undervalued because it's centered on women and children. Olay is so proud to be part of the movement that's changing that conversation. This work seeks not only to value those who drive the care economy, but also ensure that every person in this country knows that early educators are the workforce behind the workforce. During the pandemic, early educators were showing up every day to care for children of other first responders. And it's early educators who are continuing this fight, fighting for dignity, fighting for professional pay in the work that they love. The heart of this movement are the families and the early educators. They show up, and that's why we show up with them. Let's keep going.
I'm just so happy that there are so many early child care and education advocates in this room, that four of the honorees. And I'm so flattered and honored to be here with you, and grateful to the work of Olay, to the work of EC on the movement, and everybody here in Community Change for doing this work. And I know Community Change has cared about early childhood and care for a very long time. And before I go on, I just want to say that when I talk about early childhood education and care, I always put them together, because you can't have education without care, and care without education. You know, kids need love and learning. And so when I talk about it, I think of child care, I think of preschool, I think of all of them as one unified whole, you know, that's giving kids what they need, and all of us what we need, because if our kids don't get what they need, none of us do, right? And I also want to, she doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I want to give a shout out to Barbara Chow. Barbara is our director of education at the foundation and has taught me a lot. And you want to stand up for a second? Thank you. So, it's hard to read my notes, maybe I won't. But I will say that, as we've heard, you know, this movement in New Mexico didn't happen overnight. It took, I believe, more than a decade of persistence, of movement building, of political organizing, and of bringing together families, communities, and early caregivers and educators to fight for what they needed, to get what they needed. And it wasn't easy because there were people who kind of stood in their way, who were in power, who were, I guess, how can I put it, conveniently but not just conveniently, it took a lot of pressure and political muscle to, you know, invite them to leave and to bring in more progressive power, who made all the difference, And you know, it was really just this refusal to accept that it was okay for families to be paying a lot more than they could possibly afford for quality childcare, really barring them from receiving it. And that at the same time, childcare educators and caregivers were literally making poverty wages. So it was just an unsustainable situation, and thank goodness that now in New Mexico there is a permanent supply of capital that will be to support early childhood education and care, the people who provide it, and the families who need it. So, what's really exciting to me is everybody here is part of this idea that early childhood education and care is not only a public good, which it is, but really a human right. And what happened in New Mexico is just, you know, showcases that. And what's great is that we've seen a lot of people sort of be, you know, the right kind of copycats. We've seen wonderful work in California, where I live, and also in Minnesota, and I hope that's just the beginning. What we need, though, is for all the funders in the room, we need to remember to, you know, stand up for people who are closest to the problems, who really understand the solutions, and we can, I guess, be those conduits of power, as I said. And we need to make sure that we continue to give flexible, long-term funding, because it doesn't happen overnight. And we need to fund policy and advocacy, and not be afraid to even delve into the political realm. I think funders need to do that more. And we need to support intermediaries like Community Change that really can work with so many different partners, fostering those relationships and creating and supporting the campaigns that are happening locally, but also nationally. So I'm grateful to all of you, and I feel kind of like each of us is a spark, like our children are sparks. But together, we're ablaze, lighting our way for a better future, brighter future. Thank you.
Chicago's grassroots political powerhouse is a catalyst for change. For over 10 years, progressive groups like Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families, and labor allies like the Chicago Teachers Union SEIU Healthcare, and Local 73, and others from across the city built a base of hundreds of thousands of members and the infrastructure to engage Black and Latino voters year in and year out.
We don't talk about issues because we heard someone talk about those issues. We've lived into those issues. It's because our families depend on it.
That is the power of organizing. The power that comes when people connect their personal struggles to structures, systems, and policy choices. The power that grows when people find a political home in their community group, or neighborhood association, or labor union. It's the power to change the conversation, change the agenda, and change what is possible with those conversations, those relationships, that day-to-day, year-by-year grind. With their steadfast commitment to building power from the ground up, they broke the party machinery that kept establishment candidates in power, shifted the public conversation on public safety.
The need is clear. The support is clear. Chicago needs treatment, not Trump.
And they elected a former school teacher and labor organizer.
Our mayor.
This year, Brandon Johnson took office with the people behind him and hundreds of millions of dollars in budget surpluses to fund the people's agenda. The headwinds are already gathering. But Chicago's grassroots political powerhouse was not built for one election or one candidate. The work continues.
We can reject the false choices that have been presented to us for too long. We don't have to choose between black, brown, white, young, old, poor, rich. We get to do it for everyone, Chicago.
The years ahead can show what progressive co-governance can deliver as the left steps boldly into power. For driving the decade-long work to nourish a community-led movement that is rooted in a bold, values-driven agenda. For disrupting Chicago's political machine to win governing power. And for boldly leading the city and the country toward transformative change. Community Change is proud to honor Chicago's grassroots political powerhouse and the leadership of Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families.
Hey everyone, it's Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson. Though I couldn't join you all in person tonight, I would like to congratulate the Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families on receiving the Disruptor Change Champion Award. Each of these coalitions represent a community-led movement that has been able to break up the status quo to make transformative change. Both groups were integral forces in my campaign for mayor, and together we demonstrated the true power of coalition building and community organizing. In a city that was run for so long by machine politics, it's nothing short of remarkable that we were able to disrupt that system and usher in a new era of governance in Chicago. In the years ahead, my partnership with these coalitions will continue as we work to unite all of our city together, a multicultural, multi-generational movement for change. It will be no small task, but I believe anything is possible through collaboration and community engagement. Just look at what we've already done. Once again, congratulations to my friends from Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families. You've earned this. Thank you to Community Change for recognizing these groups and for building power from the ground up that helps communities flourish. From all of us here in Chicago, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce 4 leaders from Chicago's grassroots political powerhouse who are with us this evening and who represent Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families. Carlos Fernandez, Executive Director of Grassroots Collaborative. Erica Bland-Yorsimi, Executive Vice President of SEIU HC11. Kennedy Bartley, Executive Director of United Working Families. And Abby Illenberger, the Chicago Teachers Union Director of Strategic Campaigns.
Thank you so much for this wonderful recognition. We are really honored and thrilled to accept it on behalf of the numerous people and organizations who built power and launched a transformation in Chicago. Among these many, many people, I want to recognize the members of the Grassroots Collaboratives Coalition, American Friends Service Committee, Action Now, Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, Chicago Teachers Union, the Palenque LSNA, One Northside, SEIU, Healthcare Illinois, Indiana. So the mayor referred to multi-generational, multiracial movement that put him into office. That is also what it took to bend the arc of history in Chicago. Generations of union and community members kept pushing even when they were told that they were small, that they couldn't fight City Hall. They fought for living wages and against big box stores for community benefits and against tax giveaways. Today, our elders and young people can look to this mayor and progressives in city councils, some of them from our own organizations, and they can believe in change. They can see leaders who love them and who can demonstrate that justice is what love looks like in public. People's organizations like ours will continue to engage that promise and to build people's belief in a government that serves the common good. We want to recognize the recent leaders of our organizations, Grassroots Collaborative's previous executive director, Amisha Patel, who is here. She led our organization for 15 years and laid a foundation of relationships and values for our movement before going on to serve the mayor's campaign and transition. And the previous executive director of United Working Families, Emma Tai, not here with us. In her 7 years, she not only built UWF into a powerhouse, but also helped many other organizations across the city build their capacities and ambitions for power. So the resolves of generations of women of color leaders in Chicago and the inspired energy of young people of color have been the catalysts for change, and they will continue to be. We've been fused together through many battles, and a willingness to teach and learn from each other across generations and to keep moving together is what it's going to take for this mayor and our movement to really fulfill the promise of this moment. It's reasonable to feel elevated expectations and intense urgency, right? Our people deserve big changes as fast as possible. But we also have a responsibility to not forego the long haul work that's going to take to build really truly deep transformation. The problems we face were not built, were built over generations, right? We need national allies like you to help defend this project and invest it with both resources and trust. We need national allies to bring their lessons, give leadership to those impacted, and take lessons to many more places. We are under no illusions about the viability of our work in isolation, but we know that if together we keep pushing, we've only begun. I want to introduce Erica Blandur-Sinmi, Executive Vice President of SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana, and our board president.
Thank you, Carlos. I'd like to thank Community Change for recognizing Grassroots Collaborative in this pivotal moment and what has been a lifetime of work for so many leaders and for so many organizations, specifically community organizations across the city of Chicago, who believed that more was possible. At the Grassroots Collaborative, we believe that we deserve to have power and that there should be nothing about us without us. We deserve a seat at the table of power, and we have strived to make sure that those in power understand where power comes from. Power comes from the people. Y'all can clap. People who get up and go to work every day in buildings, in schools, in restaurants, some employed, underemployed, unemployed, but human nonetheless, deserving nonetheless. This is a fight that we fought for our communities and for our people to be seen. And every generation has picked up the torch to fight forward. Against those who said we couldn't, against those who said we didn't deserve. Through the many losses, and there have been many, we still gained momentum, and it gave us the strength and the wisdom to continue to fight forward, to continue pushing forward when belief was waning and we wanted to give up, to continue to challenge each other, and when, come on now. Okay, all right, give me 1 second. It's digital notebook. All right. Well, I'm just gonna roll with it because I know what it means. All right. To continue to challenge each other even when times got rough. We faced a lot of challenges, and this is not work that happened overnight. There were many times that we faced mayors and the machine, and that machine packed the ballot every time we wanted to advance one of our public campaigns, so we couldn't. But that didn't stop us. We knocked the doors, we talked to the people, we did popular education, and we were able to pass a $15 minimum wage. We were able to make corporations give back money around TIF funds. And so more is possible when we believe and hope together. When we believe and hope together, we can make those things happen. We can be the change that we want to see. And this is only the beginning, right? This is a moment to celebrate, but let us not be fooled. There are forces out there that are hell-bent on making sure that we don't succeed. And so we've won, and we are in the seat of power. And when those people were not with us, we fought to make sure that organizers were elected to office. So we now have organizers that we call state rep, senator, congresswoman, alderperson, and now Mayor Johnson. The work will only be more difficult from here. But together, I am confident that we will be able to seize this moment together. We did not get here alone. This road was built with many of you in this room with us together. And so I am hoping that you all are still invested, and I think you are, in making sure that this is a shining example of what is possible and that we can win, we can push back, we can be, and people can get what they deserve when we stand together. And now I'm going to introduce the Vice Chair of United Working Families and my co-conspirator, Abby Ellenberger.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you all so much. As you've probably figured out if you were looking at the program, I am not actually the legendary Stacey Davis Gates, Chair of United Working Families and President of the mighty Chicago Teachers Union. I'm me, but I stand here bringing you greetings from Stacey, who wanted to thank Community Change, all of you, for giving us this honor, and is really sorry that she can't be here with us tonight. So on behalf of the more than 140,000 members of United Working Families and our 16 affiliated organizations, this is a deep honor. We couldn't have done it with without partners from all around the country. So thank you on behalf of all of us. As Erica said, now is the hard part, right? Election night. A lot of us said, oh shit. Our work got so much harder. Now is the time that we're moving from demands to sharp policy proposals and the struggles around implementation. Counting to 26, we have 50 city council members, right? Our work did get much harder that night. It got more multi-dimensional. It faces huge obstacles and contradictions. It faces the limits of a disinvestment in our cities, of rich people and large corporations hoarding wealth. So we also know, though, that we have to meet this moment. And so how we do that, we're digging deep to the things that brought us to this moment, right? So we're grounded in coalition, as Erica and Carlos have already said. Both Grassroots Collaborative and United Working Families are based in the idea that we build permanent coalition. We do have permanent friends, and we build over years so that that trust and those relationships can weather the crises and can sustain during the losses that inevitably seed the victories that we're feeling now. We also believe in multi-issue work and building multi-issue platforms where organizations stand shoulder to shoulder and organize for affordable housing and living wages and healthcare and workers' rights and fully funded public schools and public safety and environmental justice. We bring those platforms together, echoing each other's demands while we each continue to drive forward our own campaigns. Bringing that together and staying focused on that multi-issue work will be key to our success. Two more things that we will stand on. We're going to continue to bargain for the common good. So we are going to be in the streets together with educators, parents, and students demanding not only the schools our children deserve, but the school communities, the housing, the parks, the libraries that will sustain those communities, that will keep families in our neighborhoods, and will make our schools vibrant, learning, loving, and liberatory communities. We will be together, both consumers and healthcare providers, fighting for expanded community care, fighting for expanded home care for our seniors and people with disabilities. So bargaining for the common good, we now have a common good mayor, right? And it brings a whole new level of what's possible when we think about uniting the power of negotiation, of contracts, and of winning these community campaigns. And lastly, we learned how to contest for electoral power. We're not done, right? You win the 5th floor. In Chicago, that's the mayor's office. But we're turning right around. We've got a ballot initiative coming up in a couple of months where we're going to win progressive revenue for affordable housing. And then we're going to elect our first school board in generations in Chicago. And so we will continue to contest for electoral power. We will grow the power that we've built. And we're learning every day how we support our brother Brandon, right? Our brothers and sisters and siblings that we've sent to Congress and the county and the city, because doing that work to support organizers who go in, it's difficult, right? And how do we sustain our forces on the outside? So the work ahead is hard. But we're up for it. And we know that with all of you, we can continue to make the most of this moment. And we won't let them defeat this, because they don't want it to spread, right? Everywhere we win, they don't want it to spread. So I want to thank you for our embracing all of us up here, but it's my deep pleasure to bring up now the Executive Director of United Working Families, the brilliant Kennedy Bartley.
All right, good evening, everyone. I want to just echo the deep appreciation and gratitude that my comrades up here shared for community change. It's so wonderful to see the room. So I'll just get into it. I know we're forcing 4 people up here, thanks y'all. So, you know, for the first time in many of our lifetimes, Chicago's being governed by an administration that believes in the public sector, that's committed to restoring it, and welcomes the belief that government should meet the immediate needs of our communities through real safety and not just over-policing and surveillance, through good jobs and schools, clean air, and the right to self-determine what thriving looks like for ourselves. This election was a process victory for, you know, the point is our movement ecosystem is a larger project, right? And this administration was a victory towards what we are working for, which is true governing power that transforms the hegemony of neoliberalism, that challenges the racist and classist systems that politicians have long participated in, and that brings the margins to the center as we build sustained networks of care. In Chicago and across the nation, we've watched as administrations have co-governed, right? Like co-governance isn't this new thing born out of leftist victories. The only difference is they've co-governed with the Federal Order of Police, the real estate lobby, the corporatists. And in this moment, we get to undo the ills of the past that have displaced and dispossessed us and ensure that the communities closest to the pain are closest to the decision making. As we rewrite what government is responsible for, who government is accountable to, and you know, we're watching globally as racist and fascist right-wing attacks happen on the poor and on communities of color, and pushed already marginalized communities further to the margins, and try to make an example out of welcoming cities like Chicago that dare to see the humanity of the least of these. Well, Chicago is a proof of concept that you get to unapologetically care for people regardless of their race and class and documentation status. A proof of concept that addressing the root causes of violence and harm with care resonates with the majority of people. And what happens in Chicago has real implications on what's possible everywhere else. And the right wing knows that, right? We see it in the money that's poured in to stop our mayor's victory. We see it in the dangerous political ploys of folks like Greg Abbott who bus human beings to Chicago. And we must all consolidate around this victory because it is our responsibility to show that our movements can govern and govern without compromising on the promises of care that our candidates run on. We're currently organizing in conditions that we're responsible for co-creating. Kind of crazy for doing it. But it's presenting a new set of requirements and demands from our movement ecosystem, elected officials, and our base. There were 27,000 new voters in this last election, and those folks need to be absorbed into our base, and many more are in Chicago that need to be engaged in this process. There are campaign demands that we need to deliver on, and there are new muscles to be built as we navigate moving from outside agitators to an inside-outside strategy and holding new levers of power. New elections are always on the horizon, and they need to be won while also creating new ceilings as our old demands become the floor. In this moment of incredible opportunity, it's vital that funders and the folks in this room and organizers, whether you're in Chicago or outside of Chicago, help us meet these needs. In order to win, defend those wins, and continue to build governing power, we need the resources to get the capacity and talent necessary. I hope everyone in this room feels called upon in this moment, as called upon as I do, to meet this moment with the tenacity, imagination, and frankly, the funding that's required to push a new political reality forward. United Working Families, along with our Grassroots Coalition, ran a top-down slate in 2023 on a shoestring budget. We now have a mayor from our movement and the largest block of progressive alder people or our council people in history pushing for progressive revenue that will fund housing, expanded mental health centers, community safety, and so much more. And I know that we can do so much more and accomplish so much more if all of the power in this room is backing us. We can't stop, we can't sit back, and we must keep pushing forward and contest for power in every arena. The wellness of our communities depend on it. Thank you so much.
Hello, again. Get up for Chicago. I am very much missing my brother in the struggle, co-president Dorian Warren this evening, and I think he would be beaming right now. Chicago, born and raised. His presence is really here. Like, I really feel his presence. Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Thank you, Carlos, Erica, Kennedy, and Abby. Thank you, Gladys, Vivian, Andrea, Jennifer, Avidel, and Liz. You're all catalysts of change. And thank you again, Marie, for sharing your gift of music with us tonight. Can't do this like this. All right. Each one of you inspires us and grounds us in the vision of a future where everyone can thrive and in the slow, steady work of building the power together to create the future. 8 months ago, I welcomed Amara Sofia Braeli Eakins into this world. And as we gather tonight, Dorian and his partner Jordan will welcome at any moment now their new little girl to join Amara as the youngest members of Community Change. So I'd like to ask you to raise your hand if you have a child. Keep your hands up. Now raise your hand if you're a caretaker. Keep your hands up. Raise your hand if you're someone's sibling, someone's sister or brother. Keep your hands up. How about if you know someone who lives paycheck to paycheck? Someone who could use a raise, better health care? Raise your hand if you believe in division of an America that is for all people, not just the 1%. Now look around with your hands up. This is your community. This is our community. Thank you. This is what gives me hope. Thank you to our donors and sponsors, to Jana Richardson, and the community. Where's the community change team that made this possible? Can you raise your hands for a second? Catherine, Sandy, Susan. We are thrilled that you came out tonight, and I'm very aware that I'm the only thing standing between you and more food and drinks. So enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you so, so much.